Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had gonna yagi.
Like, so when you look around at the different brands, who are some of the brands that are actually doing R&D and innovating and not just, sourcing from some overseas manufacturer that everybody else is?
You know, um, I think we've done a good job of doing that. We picked some common shapes. Part of it was Tyra and what she wanted, and then the other one was kind of a paddle for everybody that we saw as a good sweet spot. But we did a lot of homework on the layers of carbon fiber, the type of adhesive used to bond everything together, and the type of polypropylene that's used in the core that we felt would have better fatigue resistance. So there's innovation in doing that with a paddle that's, if you looked at it from a layman's eye, it looks like any other paddle, but there's a lot goes into it. I think that Yola's innovation on the new Gen 3 is interesting. Obviously, gearbox. But then you look at who's winning in pickleball. Take a look at Annalie Waters. I mean, that's a Gen 1 paddle. It's just a sheet of material they cut out. The secret is still in the sauce, but they responded to the need for more power, I guess, and they came up with that. I think Engage does a good job as a domestic paddle manufacturer. There's so many paddles that are out there. I got to throw in there for Pro XR. I mean, it's a good paddle. I mean, obviously it has a good construction that results in some good performance. So is there any big outside of the margin technology that's out there in reality when you look at a high level player play with that paddle? I'd say other than the pro paddles, I don't think it's significant. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's still a lot that we have to uncover with paddles? I mean, I would say that, some of the more recent developments in the paddle technology would be that gearbox technology that's patented. Like, how far away are we from the mature state that is tennis? Tennis rackets haven't really made significant improvements over the last 20 years. The string technology has, but the tennis rackets themselves have, other than some minor tweaks, have pretty much stayed about the same. Like, how close are we, do you think, to an equilibrium in paddle technology?
Wow. I mean, for someone who's been in it for a very short period of time, but is a very curious individual, it's hard to answer that question. And I'll tell you why. A lot of it comes down to what are the rules going to be? What are they going to be? Mm-hmm. Are we gonna settle on the PPA and MLP standards? Or are we going to settle on the USAP? Or are they going to come together and decide what the sport needs to be in terms of the spirit of pickleball? So once you put a final kind of box on what the paddle should be, which means in my world, the speed of the ball coming off the paddle. Why are we testing for deflection? Why are we testing for these other things? And number two, spin. I mean, if you really drill down, it should be like, okay, the ball comes off the paddle with these characteristics, and let's put a box on it. Number two, how much spin is good for the game, and let's put a box on it. If we can put a box on the performance of the paddle, then we can start innovating what's inside the paddle and how we make the paddle instead of being so restrictive. I mean, a good example is if you take a look at Proton and their surface. This is about 4 times the legal limit of USAP, okay, for coefficient of friction. And if you rub a ball against it, it feels like rubber. I have no idea why this is legal or has a USAP seal on it, but who cares? Because if you look at John Q and his test of this paddle, they got about 2,300 RPM off the paddle. So who cares what the surface is made out of, right?
And is that just contextualize that? Is that a lot of RPM? You're saying that's like...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What's your paddle have, Zane? Maybe 21 something?
Yeah, it's difficult to test that. I guess I'm guessing you might be going off of a Chris Olsen video.
Or John Q.
John Q. I'm not familiar with John Q.
Yeah, neither.
Okay, pretty hard to test. You can work your way to spin amounts. Like, I would say, I think ours came in somewhere around 2,000 when Chris tested it.
Okay.
But there are definitely differences in how who's swinging the paddle can change those readings. So for context, I would say if ours is probably 2,000, I would guarantee I could get more than that. But yeah, I think I think something that somebody mentioned to me actually at the Houston tournament this past weekend was you can have an exit velocity test, right? That's a great way to test how poppy a paddle is. There's some tennis company, and I can't remember who I was having this conversation with or what the tennis company was, but basically they made a mechanical arm that swings a paddle or a racket the exact same way every single time. And then once you have that sort of technology, then you can actually have a standard way of measuring this. Chris is still doing his videos, unless he's changed it, by hitting them himself, putting a line around the ball, and seeing how many times it spins.
Yep.
That's the best that we have right now. But we need somebody who's going to swing. We need that's going to swing the exact same way every time, and then we can actually then we can start to put the box around spin, like you mentioned, Dan.
Yeah. And it has to do with what's the ambient temperature that you're testing at, right? How do you make sure that the balls from ball to ball are similar so that you get the same result? But in the end, you're probably looking at in the margins. But the industry should be based on ball exit speed and actual spin. Because here's another example. I mean, it's a Selkirk Lux paddle, right? Well, that's a different texture. That's sprayed on with a polymer and might have some grit in there. And then you've got raw carbon fibers. So my point is, like, who cares what the roughness is? Who cares what the coefficient of friction is? Who cares what you're putting on the paddle to create the spin? It should be what is, and that's the result. And so I think that stifles innovation if we can't put a box around that. And it also creates challenges because someone like Gearbox comes in and they kind of get around the rules and they produce a paddle that's as fast as an EVA paddle. Mm-hmm. And do we want a paddle that has a 73 mile per hour speed coming off the paddle? I don't know. I mean, I hear a lot of people that don't like to play against that. What do you think, Zane? Just curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these organizations all need to self-regulate. USA Pickleball's objectives are different than PPA's and MLP's, and you need to create standards to your own objectives. I cannot say clearly enough that I think that super powerful paddles make the game boring, because it actually, while you think of it, powerful paddles means hitting the ball hard. No, it actually means you're afraid to hit the ball hard because it's coming back at you harder if you screw it up. Dead paddles would make the game far more interesting. So I generally think soft and spinny paddles are what the professionals should be playing with, and I think that the pros should actually have a lower standard of power than amateurs. And actually, baseball is a great example of this, right? Right. Up until professional level, you're using aluminum bats. And then at the pro level, they've dumbed it down and you have to use wood bats. So they actually have worse technology at the professional level. And I think that that's important for us. I think we need to do the same thing. I think pros can already swing super hard. They can already generate more power on their own. Let's rein in the power of the paddle so that I can actually showcase my skill and my ability to hit the ball hard. Right. And it's not just the equipment.
The pickle box.
The pickleball box?
The pickleball box. Yeah, just kidding. It's the pickleball box.
The pickleball box.
It is a subscription box.
Gear, accessories, apparel.
and it comes straight to my door with all the hottest pickleball gear in here.
It's so hot I can barely.
Over $250 of value in each box, and you only pay 99 bucks for each one. Go to thedink.shop, undoubtedly the best gift for any pickleballer, or if you're like me, or anybody who listens to this, you're obsessed with pickleball, this is honestly like the perfect thing for you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun, yeah.